That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, my dudes, we just had another full day of football. Now, excuse me, I know I'm probably going to be a little too excited in this video. I'm probably going to be a little too just jumpy, wanting to move some rankings. But, I mean, guys, how long have we been waiting for football? How long have we been waiting for this? Now, we're going to try not to overreact. And please police me. If you think I'm going overboard, if you think I say something that's crazy, go down to the comment section. This is something that I want y'all to be doing throughout the entire season, where I'll get a little too excited. I mean, this is my entire life. This is literally what I think about from the time I go to bed to the time I go to bed again. I mean, 24 hours a day, I am just dreaming, thinking, breathing, sleeping, whatever it is, fantasy football. So whenever we get football, I'm always going to be the first one to be maybe a little too excited about it. So if I say anything dumb ever, guys, I know I'm an idiot. Please go to the comment section. Let me know what I said was stupid. Let me know what I said that other people don't necessarily need to be listening to. Because if someone else goes to the comment section, then they go, okay, well, I thought Mason was wrong with that too. Okay, I'm glad to hear that someone else does as well. And before we get into the winners of week 2 of the preseason, make sure, guys, y'all go get our 2021 fantasy football draft guide. Now, we are not selling our draft guide for $80. I mean, we're actually giving away 2 fantasy football draft guides, hundreds of pages of information. Our 2021 fantasy football draft guide, our 2021 dynasty rookie draft guide, our rankings and our tiers, all available just with a $10 deposit on Underdog Fantasy. And when you make that $10 deposit, they're going to add $25 to your account. That's where we live draft every single night. That's where I'm literally in over 100 fantasy football leagues on Underdog Fantasy as is. And that's going to continue to grow as we get closer to the year. But that's it. Let's dive into this video. Let's go through. Let's talk about these winners. And let's start it off with Rhamondre Stevenson. So y'all know with Stevenson, I actually did not include him in the winners video from week 1. And the reason is we actually made a video a couple days before week 1 of the preseason. And I came out and I said, Rhamondre Stevenson is a must-have sleeper running back. You can get him in the last round of every single fantasy football draft that you're in. And we know, based on what we have seen over the past decade, there's been a simple formula on how to win with the New England Patriots backfield. And I have no idea how people have not learned this lesson by now. And I will be the first one to admit, back in 2015, 2016, I did not want to listen to people when they were saying this. But I kind of had to come to the pressure. I kind of had to realize that people said it for a great reason. And with New England, what you do every single offseason, if you want to be the guy profiting with the backfield situation, is invest into the cheapest player there. Invest to the cheapest option in that backfield. And that this season was Rhamondre Stevenson. And it was so funny looking at people drafting Damien Harris in the 6th, 7th round of fantasy drafts when Damien Harris has less targets in his NFL career than games played, something very similar to Alabama. He has no usage in the receiving game, and that will never change. And it was funny watching people take a running back like that in the 6th, 7th round of their fantasy drafts, really, in my opinion, at his ceiling. Whereas you could get Rhamondre Stevenson in the last round of your league, where the team investment by the New England Patriots, very similar into each running back. And each running back profile was strikingly very similar as well. And so far through this preseason, I don't want to take anything away from what Damien Harris has done, but he has yet to show that he can get that receiving down usage, which, newsflash, we've been talking about it for I don't know how long now. He can't. He's not going to. And it looks like Rhamondre Stevenson may, I don't want to say be a better running back. Of course, he's not a better running back than Damien Harris, but he's at least in the same stratosphere. And here with the Rhamondre Stevenson, he comes out in week 1. I didn't want to say it because I felt like it would just be victory lapping. And in week 1, he did it in the 4th quarter. And we know the 4th quarter, it doesn't really matter what you do. You're going up against guys that may not even make the practice squad. You're going up against the bums of the bums. And in that game, he comes out 10 carries, 127 yards, 2 touchdowns. Of course, a massive blow up week. I didn't bring it up because I didn't want to go, haha, I told you so, which, you know, I love to do that anyway, but it was against bad defensive players, and we really didn't want to discuss it because it was in the 4th quarter. Well, after that performance, the New England Patriots decide, hey, let's kind of move him up a little bit. Let's see what he can do in the 2nd quarter of the 2nd preseason game. And they go out there and they use him a little earlier on with better personnel on the field. And he goes out 15 carries, 66 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 targets out of the backfield. So far this preseason, Rhamondre Stevenson has 25 carries, 193 yards, and 4 touchdowns through 2 games. I think that now, if you're playing in a shallow format, if you have yet to have your draft, you can still probably get Rhamondre Stevenson in the last round of your fantasy draft, just given the fact that if you're in a shallow league, I mean, there are only so many players going off the board regardless. But those deeper leagues, I really hope you drafted Rhamondre Stevenson in the last round of your fantasy draft, especially on Underdog Fantasy, where we're drafting every single night. I mean, drafting there all day as well. I probably did 6 drafts on there already today. But with a Rhamondre Stevenson, I mean, this is someone that you could have gotten in the 18th round. Now, I think that's probably going to get pushed up to closer to the 15th, 14th, and it's going to be very intriguing what we see the next preseason game. And what we really need to see is going to be Sony Michel this next game. If Sony Michel is going to be making the roster, then I'm not going to lie, Rhamondre Stevenson, you don't want him. I mean, the depth chart, he'll be so buried that it's not even worth it. But what's interesting is if this team decides to move on from Sony Michel, possibly ship Sony Michel elsewhere, we've gotten reports about that earlier this offseason, then that makes Rhamondre Stevenson just in the mix for New England. And that's when we want him. So we really need to make sure we're looking at week 3. We really need to make sure we're looking at what's going to happen with Sony Michel for Rhamondre Stevenson. Now, going back to, I don't want to say, and I told you so, and depending on when this video gets out, hopefully this video gets posted on Sunday morning. If not, maybe it gets posted on Monday morning. I don't know. Regardless, we recorded a Mecole Hardman video yesterday that should be coming out very, very soon. If you haven't watched it already, where I dive in depth talking about why I think people that are overblowing Mecole Hardman's bust potential are looking at all the wrong details. And here we see Mecole Hardman come out in week 2, plays almost every single snap with Patrick Mahomes. He has 8 targets, 4 receptions, 39 receiving yards, and a touchdown. Now, the number one thing that we need to be looking at here is the opportunity that Mecole Hardman gets in the offense, because we know that is the number one thing that's going to translate to fantasy production, especially with the boom bust receiver like a Mecole Hardman. Now, I don't want to dive too in depth with Mecole here, and I will put a little asterisk on this in saying that Tyreek Hill was not in the game. So possibly we actually just saw Mecole Hardman playing that Tyreek Hill role instead of the role that he's going to play in his own respective week when everybody is healthy. But regardless, with the Mecole Hardman, I mean, just the fact that he was able to play almost every single snap with Patrick Mahomes, the fact that he was able to generate this stat line is at the very minimum intriguing. At the very minimum, you have to at least take a look at it and go, maybe there is something here, because a lot of people are screaming, Mecole Hardman, massive bust in fantasy. And if you look at ESPN ADP, where a lot of casual drafters are playing, he's going behind guys like Jalen Reagor. He's going behind, T.Y. Hilton, players that are literally nothing. Now, on Underdog, those are where the better drafters are. So Underdog, he's going a little bit higher, but that's mainly because Underdog leagues, you have to be 18 years old. Every league has a buy-in, so the ADP there is going to be a lot more efficient. But if you're playing in a casual format, Mecole Hardman's looking more and more intriguing every single week. Now, a very small winner I want to point to is going to be a Chase Edmonds. So here with Chase Edmonds, we simply hadn't had any data on how he's going to be used with the first team offense versus him and James Conner. Now, y'all know I've been on the train saying that Chase Edmonds is a very intriguing running back, given the fact that we saw him in the past 2 years in a very small sample. I mean, we literally are only looking at 2 or 3 games. But when the starting running backs were out of the game in front of him, you actually had Chase Edmonds stepping into a 3-down role where he had over 20 carries a game. He also had over 5 targets a game, and he looked like a traditional bell cow running back. And I loved going out there, and I loved getting him at that price, considering the fact that he was playing in an elite offense attached to Kyler Murray in Cliff Kingsbury's system. Now, I know a lot of people were hesitant based on the fact that they bring in James Conner, and I'll be the first one to admit, I honestly don't even mind James Conner's draft price, because I just think that if you nail the running back situation in Arizona, you're going to be so far out ahead of the rest of the field, considering the fact that you're getting a massive discount on both running backs with the uncertainty that's in the situation. But we know this is going to be an elite offense with what Kyler Murray can do through the air and on the ground. So I'm not even just going out here and saying that James Conner's a horrendous running back or a horrendous pick in fantasy. But what I'm more so saying is everybody who was thinking that it was possible that James Conner was the starting running back here, I mean, you were just proven wrong. We've already talked about this in depth, but James Conner got paid a very small contract to go over to Arizona. Literally, I mean, he gets paid like less than Malcolm Brown. I really didn't want to have to worry about a James Conner whatsoever. But yeah, it looks like Chase Edmonds is the starting running back in Arizona. This should have been expected, but it is what it is. Let's bring it up and let's move on. And let's go over to Darnell Mooney. So Darnell Mooney, he's someone that I may have to come out here and I have to take some L's on. Because a few months ago, there were two receivers that I really did not like that were not even going that high in fantasy drafts. They were actually going near that same Mecole Hardman range. Both of those guys were Gabriel Davis and Darnell Mooney. Now, both players were field stretching wide receiver options that were drafted on day 3 in the NFL draft last year. Both receivers showed flashes their rookie seasons, but if you take a step back and if you look at the profile of both guys, I mean, they both really look like flash in the pans, in my opinion. Now, the reasoning that we were trying to fade both is just because field stretching receivers that are going to be the second options on their offense, not necessarily a massive fan of unless we have a long track record, because we know you really don't want those receivers that are going to have an incredibly high average depth of target regardless, because the volatility that they're going to bring week to week and how hard that projected volume is going to be. But here with the Darnell Mooney, I mean, he's out there and he's getting the Allen Robinson treatment. I mean, they're pretty much not even playing him in these games. And it's like the complete opposite of what you actually have right now with a Gabriel Davis. So yes, Gabriel Davis, of course, he's a faller, but I may have to sit here and take an L on Darnell Mooney, because not only are we seeing the Bears treat him like a bona fide stud starter, but at the same time, we're actually seeing those very smart drafters on Underdog Fantasy, those real money leagues where everybody's over 18 years old. So you're not getting the 12, 13-year-old kids and they're doing some mock drafts, messing up the ADP, but you actually see Darnell Mooney rising in ADP as we get closer to the season. I can't ignore that. I'm wrong all the time. And this may be one of those instances where I was just wrong about Darnell Mooney. Now, our next player is going to be Corey Davis, who of course signs a massive contract to go over to the New York Jets, signs a bigger deal than Will Fuller, signs a bigger deal than Juju Smith-Schuster, and he signed right at the beginning of free agency as well. So these should have been signs that the new coaching staff was really wanting to implement Corey Davis as an alpha X receiver. Now, I will admit I've been a little hesitant based on the fact that when they restructured Jamison Crowder's contract, all of a sudden we're looking at an offense that's trying to support all of the weapons in Corey Davis, Elijah Moore. Y'all know how much I love Elijah Moore and Jamison Crowder in the slot. But Corey Davis comes out here and he is straight up dominant. I mean, he commands a ridiculous amount of volume per snap that he plays with the first team offense, and he's efficient with that volume as well. He goes out there 6 targets, 4 receptions, and 70 receiving yards in this past game. That's something that you can't overlook. Corey Davis, I mean, getting that chemistry built in with Zach Wilson, a rookie quarterback, not necessarily like an incumbent wide receiver there has any kind of advantage. It's not like you're looking at it going, okay, well, Zach Wilson's been there with the players in that situation longer. No, everything is new in New York. So does it really matter if Corey Davis is transitioning teams? I know we have a historical trend of receivers that are transitioning teams having a slight dip in fantasy production their following season. Now, of course, that's hard to bring up when Stephon Diggs and DeAndre Hopkins completely crushed last year, but that is a historical trend that we have found. But maybe that simply doesn't matter here with Corey Davis because they have a new coach and a new quarterback regardless. So everybody's new in the situation. So now, staying in New York, we're going to talk about 2 more players. The next guy, let's talk about Zach Wilson. So Zach Wilson, frankly, looked really good. I mean, he goes out there with 11 attempts. He has 9 completions. He has 128 passing yards and 2 passing touchdowns. Now, he also has great personnel. This is a team that went out there, dramatically upgraded the offensive line as well through free agency, and most in particular through the NFL draft. Don't remember the guard's name off the top of my head that they traded up for, I believe out of USC, and they selected him, I believe, with the 14th, 16th pick, something in that range. But reports were coming out that they said that they had him graded as a top 8 player overall, which, if that's true, I mean, that's massive. They get a significant upgrade off the offensive line. They have a new coaching staff coming in. All along with this, Corey Davis, Elijah Moore coming in at receiver. I think you kind of have to like the situation. And I'm not saying you have to like it in a vacuum, but I'm saying at least compared to what New York has been over the past few years. And Zach Wilson probably has some more upside than other quarterbacks going in that range for a 1 QB format. Now, the last player we need to talk about in New York is going to be Tevin Coleman. Now, Tevin Coleman, I mean, this is a last round dart throw. This is more so kind of leading us into calling Michael Carter a loser in the next video. But here with Tevin Coleman, I mean, he's the starting running back for now with the New York Jets. And this is a running back backfield that I'll say, I don't know exactly how much value Tevin Coleman would actually have, given the fact that if he is the starting running back, you're not expecting him to get any usage on third downs anyway. That usage is not even going to go to Michael Carter. It looks like they're actually going to split that backfield for the beginning part of the season. Maybe they try to transition Michael Carter in as the starter later on. But regardless, it looks like Tevin Coleman's a 2-down running back right now in New York, which I'll say for a regular format where you're just going through, you're starting 2 running backs in a flex, not interested in Tevin Coleman. Don't pick him up. Really have no interest. But for those underdog leagues where you have to go very deep, all of a sudden, Tevin Coleman becomes someone that is an extremely viable draft pick. So now going over, let's talk about Gus Edwards. And here Gus Edwards splits pretty much 50-50 with J.K. Dobbins in terms of that workload. And this is why I've been saying to avoid J.K. Dobbins. And I know we've gotten a lot of hate about this. A lot of people have come out and they've told me, oh, you're avoiding the starting running back that just led the NFL in yards per carry on the most run-heavy offense in the NFL. And I have to come back. I have to push back, go, well, there are a lot of things to go with this. A, we know Lamar Jackson's not going to target the running backs coming out of the backfield. B, they give Gus Edwards that really nice extension, indicating that they are going to believe that Gus Edwards is not just a backup in this situation. Gus Edwards, I don't want to say he's playing a pure 50-50 running back role, but he's at least going to be in there, 40% of the snaps that J.K. Dobbins is in. I mean, I think that you're going to see this backfield not split 50-50 as you had it, where J.K. Dobbins actually was the running back getting less usage this week. I think J.K. Dobbins is still the running back that you want in Baltimore, obviously. But when you're drafting him where he's going in some casual leagues at the beginning of the 3rd round, that's just a little too rich, especially in a PPR format when we know that the usage in the receiving game is going to be quite limited. Gus Edwards coming out. I love Gus Edwards in fantasy, especially on those underdog drafts where you don't necessarily have to submit your starting lineup. It's submitted for you, because with Gus Edwards, this is someone that we know is going to get touches every single week. And if there was an injury to a J.K. Dobbins, he steps into a 3-down role. I love the profile of a running back like that, regardless of the league you're playing in. Definitely love me some Gus Edwards. Now, our next guy, I have to admit, this is someone that I've been fading in fantasy football. I've been fading him because of the offensive line, Najee Harris. So Najee Harris, I've been consistently taking Joe Mixon over him this season so far. Now, it looks like Najee Harris is going to be exactly what everybody has thought so far. Najee Harris gets every single snap essentially with Ben Roethlisberger in this first team offense. And here with Najee Harris, I mean, this is a running back that's also getting the usage in the receiving game. He has a massive catch in this week, and that's something that I will say I think a lot of people underrate with Najee Harris, and that if you look at his target share that he actually had at Alabama his last year there, I mean, he was getting heavy usage in the receiving game. Now, of course, it was overshadowed based on what he can do on the ground, and also you look at a running back with his frame, and you don't necessarily assume just a natural pass catcher, but you actually had with Najee Harris someone that was a decent pass catcher at Alabama, and he looks like he is showing that so far. And the last player we're going to talk about, another rookie for Pittsburgh. Let's talk about Pat Freiermuth here. Now, it's very intriguing to see Eric Ebron puts up a very nice stat line for today. But Pat Freiermuth, the reason I said that I was no longer drafting Eric Ebron in those best ball formats is because Freiermuth was getting snaps with the first team in the first week of the preseason, which is something you never expect in a preseason game for a tight end that was drafted in the 2nd round, a rookie tight end they take so long to develop. Now he's in there again with Ben Roethlisberger, and this week he catches 2 touchdowns from Ben Roethlisberger. It looks like this team, I don't want to say we may have to move down a Chase Claypool, but it looks like this team may be running more 2 wide receiver sets. That way they can get both Eric Ebron and Pat Freiermuth on the field together, which in my opinion would probably make a lot of sense considering Ben Roethlisberger doesn't have the arm talent to push it down the field aggressively anymore. They want to run the ball more with Najee Harris. Clearly having 2 tight ends on the field is going to boost the running efficiency of this offense. So maybe Pat Freiermuth is someone that you obviously are not drafting right now, but if something happens where we get to the second half of the season, he can become an interesting guy off the waiver wire. I thought I talked about him, but somehow I didn't. So we're going to have to make this edit. We're going to have to add it in because Myles Gaskin, the biggest winner of week 2 of the preseason, and it wasn't even close. Here with Myles Gaskin, I have to admit, this is someone that I came out and I said, before anything happened, before the preseason even started, that he was one of the worst values in fantasy drafts when he was going in the 4th, 5th round. Now, I will say, after week 1, I was ringing the alarms going, my God, looks like Myles Gaskin isn't even the starting running back in Miami. He's running with the 2s right now. For whatever reason, they wanted to use Malcolm Brown as the starter in week 1. And this is why it's so important not to react to the preseason. We then, I will say, actually got a bunch of exposure to Myles Gaskin on Underdog Fantasy when he was then falling to the 7th, 8th round of fantasy drafts, which that was a little too far. So we started drafting Myles Gaskin. Now you're not going to be able to get him there anymore. Now he's going to be back to being a 4th, 5th round pick. He looked fantastic today. He was clearly running with the ones. He was the clear starting running back in Miami. Nobody there is close to him with their talent. Now, I will say if he's going back in the 4th, 5th round, I'm back to not drafting him, which kind of sucks. When you're Myles Gaskin, you cannot deny the fact that he is the biggest winner of fantasy drafts. And yeah, let's get back to the video. Now, thank you, my dudes. I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. Of course, go down there, drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. We're live streaming every single night on this channel, so make sure you subscribe, hit the bell next to it. That way you get notified and you can come out to our next live stream. And yeah, that's all I got for you, my dudes. Have a great day. We have had the craziest amount of support over on Patreon. Thank you, Colby, Ryan, Spencer, Seb, It's Easy, David, Justin, Christian, Tyler, and Robert. Thank you.